Across India and throughout the Hindu world, millions begin their worship, ceremonies, and even mundane activities by first honoring Lord Ganesha, the elephant-headed deity believed to remove obstacles and ensure success. From elaborate temple rituals to simple household prayers, the invocation Sri Ganeshaya Nama echoes as the necessary first step. Yet within this ocean of devotion exists a significant island of exception. The Vaishnava traditions, particularly the Gaudiya Vaishnavas following Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Sri Vaishnavas following Ramanujacharya. These devotees consciously avoid worshipping Ganesha and other deities, focusing exclusively on Lord Vishnu and his incarnations. Is this simply sectarian preference, or does it reflect a profound theological principle supported by scripture? Today, we explore why Vaishnavas substitute Ganesha with Vishvaksena, or bypass secondary deities entirely, and whether this practice aligns with or contradicts classical Vedic tradition. Our journey takes us through ancient texts, ritual manuals, and philosophical arguments that have shaped these divergent approaches to divine worship. Welcome to Exclusive Devotion: Why Vaishnavas Don't Worship Ganesha. The cornerstone text guiding Gaudiya Vaishnava ritual practice is the Sat Kriya Sara Dipika, compiled by Gopala Bhatta Goswami in the 16th century. As a manual for samskara's life cycle ceremonies, it explicitly instructs Vaishnavas to avoid worshipping Ganesha and other deities. The text opens with a philosophical argument for exclusive Vishnu worship, followed by practical instructions substituting traditional deities with Vaishnava alternatives. Where conventional Hindu rituals prescribe Ganesha worship at the beginning of ceremonies, Sat Kriya Sara Dipika directs devotees to worship Vishvaksena, the commander of Vishnu's forces, along with the four Kumaras. A key verse from the Padma Purana cited in this text states, "The devotee interested in pure devotion to the Lord and initiated with Vaishnava mantra should never worship Ganesha and the other devatas." Wherever ordinary worshippers prescribe worship of Ganesha and other deities, the Vaishnava should worship the pure devotees of Vishnu. This directive isn't presented as optional, but as a requirement for those dedicated to Vishnu. Similarly, the Hari-bhakti-vilasa, another authoritative Vaishnava text, establishes protocols that bypass traditional deity worship in favor of exclusive focus on Vishnu. What's particularly striking is that these texts acknowledge they're deliberately modifying traditional Vedic and Puranic rituals. Gopala Bhatta Goswami recognizes that most Vaishnavas are grihastas, householders, who need to perform life cycle ceremonies, but restructures these rituals to align with Vaishnava theology. The philosophical foundation for this exclusive devotion comes from the concept often expressed as watering the root. As explained by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, if you pour water on the root, then the water is distributed everywhere. But if you pour water on the leaves, on the twigs, on the fruits, it will not be successful. God is the origin of everything. He is the root. If you pour water in the root, then the water is distributed everywhere. This analogy, drawn from the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, suggests that by worshipping Vishnu, the supreme source of all beings, one automatically worships all subsidiary deities and aspects of creation. Vaishnavas extend this concept further by referencing the Padma Purana's statement that Vishnu worship is complete in itself, while worship of other deities requires additional worship of Vishnu to be complete. They cite the Bhagavad Gita 9:23, "Those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them with faith actually worship only me, but they do so in a wrong way." For Vaishnavas, this isn't about disrespecting Ganesha or other deities, whom they acknowledge as powerful spiritual beings, but about spiritual efficiency and the principle of undivided devotion, Ananya Bhakti. They argue that divided attention in worship dilutes devotional potency and creates obstacles rather than removing them. The Vaishnava approach also emphasizes direct access to the Supreme rather than approaching through intermediaries. Why seek the blessing of an obstacle remover, they reason, when one can approach the controller of all obstacles directly? To evaluate the Vaishnava position, we must first understand Ganesha's status in Vedic literature. This is where matters become complex and contested. Many Ganesha devotees cite the Rig Veda mantra beginning Gananam Tva Ganapatim Havamahe, Rig Veda 2.23.1, as evidence of Ganesha's Vedic origins. This hymn invokes Ganapati, literally Lord of Hosts, and is recited during Ganesha worship. However, scholars note that in its original Vedic context, this mantra was addressed to Brihaspati, the preceptor of the gods, not the elephant-headed deity of later Hinduism. The Anukramani index of the Rig Veda confirms this attribution. The elephant-headed Ganesha as we know him today appears to have emerged in the post-Vedic period, becoming prominent in the Puranic era after 500 CE. His absence from early Vedic ritual manuals is notable. The earliest undisputed references to Ganesha worship come from texts like the Graya Sutras and later Puranas. This creates an interesting tension. Vaishnavas could argue that, since Ganesha worship isn't explicitly prescribed in the Vedas, their avoidance of it isn't contradicting Vedic injunction but later tradition. What's undeniable is that by the medieval period, Ganesha had become firmly established as the deity to be worshipped first in most Hindu rituals, a practice the Vaishnavas consciously diverged from. If Vaishnavas don't worship Ganesha as the remover of obstacles, what do they do instead? In Sri Vaishnava tradition, the answer is clear. They worship Vishvaksena. Vishvaksena, whose name means all-pervading force, serves as the commander-in-chief of Vishnu's army and the gatekeeper of Vaikuntha, Vishnu's abode. Unlike Ganesha, who is depicted with an elephant head, Vishvaksena appears similar to Vishnu himself. He has 4 arms holding a conch and discus, with one hand in a blessing posture and the other resting on his hip. In Sri Vaishnava temples, festivals typically begin with the worship and procession of Vishvaksena. The Vaikhanasa Agama provides detailed protocols for this worship, emphasizing that approaching Vishnu requires first appeasing his gatekeeper. Gaudiya Vaishnavas, following Gopala Bhatta Goswami's guidance, substitute Ganesha worship with veneration of Vishvaksena and the 4 Kumaras, Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana, and Sanat Kumar, the eternally youthful sons of Lord Brahma, who are regarded as exemplary devotees of Vishnu. This substitution reveals something important. Vaishnavas aren't abandoning the functional role that Ganesha serves in Hindu worship. They're redirecting it through figures connected to their Ishtadevata, chosen deity, Vishnu. This maintains ritual coherence while preserving theological consistency. The Vaishnava approach to deity worship reflects a particular understanding of divine hierarchy and spiritual attainment that differs from other Hindu traditions. While Smartas, followers of Adi Shankaracharya, worship 5 deities equally: Vishnu, Shiva, Shakti, Surya, and Ganesha. Through the Panchayatana system, Vaishnavas maintain that Vishnu alone is supreme and all other deities are subordinate to him. This stance isn't unique to Vaishnavism. Shaivites similarly place Shiva at the apex, and Shaktas elevate the goddess. What distinguishes the Vaishnava position is the thoroughness with which they've institutionalized exclusive worship in their ritual systems. The philosophical principle at work is Ekantika Bhakti, or single-pointed devotion. The Bhagavata Purana, central to Vaishnava theology, repeatedly emphasizes that divided worship yields divided results, while exclusive devotion to the Supreme brings complete fulfillment. An important verse from the Bhagavad Gita 7.23 states, "Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the demigods, but my devotees come to me." For Vaishnavas, this isn't merely about reaching heaven versus achieving liberation. It's about the nature of devotion itself. They argue that love, to be complete, must be exclusive. Just as a spouse wouldn't appreciate divided affection, divine love shouldn't be dispersed among many objects. The Gaudiya tradition particularly emphasizes Manjari Bhava, the mood of exclusive service to Radha and Krishna, which they consider incompatible with worship of other deities. This explains why Vaishnavas might view conventional polytheistic practice not as spiritually inclusive, but as devotionally diluted. How do contemporary Vaishnavas navigate a Hindu world where Ganesha worship is ubiquitous? The answer varies by community and context. In established Vaishnava institutions like ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, adherence to exclusive Vishnu worship is strictly maintained. Their temples contain no images of Ganesha or other non-Vaishnava deities, and their ceremonies follow the protocols established in texts like Sat Kriya Sara Dipika. Traditional Sri Vaishnav temples in South India similarly maintain exclusive focus on Vishnu, Lakshmi, and their associates, with Vishvaksena receiving worship in his functional role as obstacle remover. For Vaishnavas living in broader Hindu society, navigating family and community ceremonies can require careful discernment. Many will attend functions where Ganesha is worshipped, but might personally maintain mental focus on Vishnu during such rituals. For life cycle ceremonies, samskaras, Vaishnava families often engage priests familiar with their tradition who can perform rituals according to texts like Sat Kriya Sara Dipika rather than conventional manuals. This ensures adherence to both general Hindu custom and specific Vaishnava principles. Some modern Vaishnavas take a more accommodating approach, viewing Ganesha as a devotee of Vishnu rather than an independent deity, thus making his worship compatible with Vaishnava principles. This perspective, while not supported by the strictest interpretations of texts like Sat Kriya Sara Dipika, allows for greater integration with broader Hindu practice. The Vaishnava practice of avoiding Ganesha worship in favor of exclusive devotion to Vishnu reveals something profound about the Hindu tradition itself, its capacity to contain multiple, sometimes contradictory approaches to the divine within a broadly shared framework. Is the Vaishnava position a deviation from Vedic tradition? The answer depends on how one defines tradition. If the Vedas represent the final authority, then the absence of explicit Ganesha worship in the earliest texts gives Vaishnavas some justification. If, however, one considers the evolved tradition of Hinduism as equally authoritative, then Vaishnavas have indeed created a significant exception to established practice. What's clear is that Vaishnavas aren't rejecting Ganesha out of disrespect, but out of a particular understanding of devotional focus. Their watering the root approach represents a valid theological perspective within Hindu thought, even if it differs from mainstream practice. Perhaps most importantly, this diversity of approaches reminds us that Hinduism has never been a monolithic tradition, but a family of related paths, some emphasizing polytheistic inclusivity, others monotheistic exclusivity, and still others non-dualistic unity. Rather than asking which approach is correct, we might better appreciate how each tradition's practices reflect its unique understanding of the divine and the spiritual journey. In this light, the Vaishnava exception to Ganesha worship stands not as a rejection of Hindu tradition, but as a testament to its remarkable ability to accommodate diverse paths to the same ultimate truth. For those seeking deeper understanding of these traditions, a respectful study of both the texts and living practices reveals the profound philosophical richness that underlies even seemingly simple ritual differences.